Hey Ecofictologists, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lovis, and today I thought I would check in with you a little bit because we are pretty much exactly halfway through Camp NaNo, and the thing that's really gotten me through camp in the past is the community around it that I have found, so I thought it was only fitting to invite some members of that community onto the channel to have this midway check-in with me. So I've got Katelin and I've got Danica here today, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but I'm super happy that they're here and you will recognize them from live streams before. And yeah, Katelin, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of your channel and what you do?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Katelin Urgo. I am a fellow author tuber, and I am currently posting content all about Camp NaNo and NaNoWriMo, but I also am posting content related to getting my book traditionally published and that whole process and how I'm figuring it out as I go, which is really fun. And I'm also doing some projects where I'm exploring different genres and really pushing myself to be the best author I can be.
Love it. Love it. Yes, Katelin is our guinea pig. We're all going to learn from Katelin. She's the first into the trenches.
Yes.
In our little crew.
Absolutely.
Danica, how about you?
Okay, so hey everybody, I'm Danica Gray. I am also an author tuber and mainly focus on just documenting my writing journey, specifically writing really my first ever full novel, if I get all the way to the end of this, which is the hope. Currently in the outlining stages, so a lot of my videos have to do around that. And I would be posting videos around camp, except for my very relaxed Camp NaNo goal, which we will be talking about soon.
We will be talking about that soon.
Yes.
Yeah, before we dive into goals, do you want to talk a little bit about the projects that you're currently working on? I know, Katelin, your goals are not directly related to a project, but you can still give us an idea of genre and what kind of stuff you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. As Lovis said, I'm not working on a project this month. I opted for more of a personal journal type thing. And so I basically picked 31 writing prompts or journal prompts, and my goal was to simply answer one per day. It was not anything crazy, no word count, no time count. My goal is to just simply answer the question. Yeah.
Danica, how about you?
My project that I'm currently focusing on the most this month, and really every month at this point, is my Project Red, which is a YA new adult fantasy enemies to lovers romance story. So that's what I've been focusing on, although I'm mainly still in the pre-writing outlining stages. I haven't really gotten into the drafting just yet.
Yeah, that's really cool. And your goal is more about creativity, isn't it?
Yes. It's a little less about that project, yes. Yeah. But to the extent that I am writing, it's going to be in that project because it's kind of my main focus right now. So
excellent.
We're both kind of project adjacent.
Project adjacent. I like it. Yes, and if you caught my video on my Camp NaNo goal, you'll know that I am back to the drawing board on the draft that I finished in April. I think it's going to be, I'm really excited about this actually, and I think it's going to be a lot better. I think I'm exploring different aspects that make it more unique and interesting. So silver linings and everything happens for a reason and all that crap. And my goal this month was also more of a relaxed goal. I decided I wanted to do 30 minutes of something writing related every day. And I did that because I have a lot of stuff going on in general life and in my academic life, and I didn't want to put that extra pressure on myself. So I decided 30 minutes a day, I would do something that would help me make some progress in my work, and that can range from so many different things. I could be scrolling Pinterest if it inspires something that, turns into some world building aspect, for example. Anything goes. And this is why I wanted to talk to you during this kind of mid-camp check-in because I am so much less stressed now than I was this time in April. Like, I had a really good time in April, but I was so stressed, and I was like running on adrenaline.
Yeah.
And I'm so chilled out about Nano this time, and I think it's because my goal is time-based, and I haven't put that word count pressure on myself. So I just thought we would chat about the benefits of prioritizing kind of your creativity and your mental health over a word count goal. So I've got some questions for you.
Love.
If we start off, what is the biggest kind of positive that you've experienced since making this more chilled out goal? Danica, do you want to go first?
Well, okay, so I'll start by saying like my theory for what my goal is for camp. I think my goal is very similar to yours, Lovis, where I basically am doing a time-based goal that's centered a little bit more around my creativity than my project, but I think it's just a little bit more relaxed than yours even. So I'm doing 30 hours, not even 31, I get a day off. I'm doing 30 hours of refilling my creative well, which to me can mean any number of things. It could either be actually writing, like working on my story, and writing is broad, like since I'm outlining, I could be brainstorming or outlining or actually drafting a scene or just, jotting down thoughts or walking around thinking of ideas. All that counts as like the writing bucket to me. So I could be doing something for my story, or if I just feel too drained that day and I'm just not able to work on my story, I could be reading something that would help kind of get my creativity flowing. Or if I don't even really feel like I'm at a space where I can take anything in or give anything out, I've been having myself just kind of sit, particularly outside because it's relatively nice outside, at least in the mornings before it's too hot, and just enjoy peace and quiet and not listen to any music, watch any YouTube videos, or like have any input, just kind of be and relax. And I find that when I'm able to do that, if I'm like kind of quiet for long enough, I'll start to come up with ideas for my story sort of naturally without really trying. It's like not like I'm sitting down forcing myself to do it. It's just like I'm giving myself the break that I feel like I need. And the reason I did that is just because this month is super, super busy for me. And I knew that if I tried to force myself to do my story, it was gonna be probably worse for me because I don't have that much creativity to give. So I'm refilling my creative well. But I think the best positive that I've gotten out of this is, like you said, Lovis, I have been so much less stressed about it. I have really enjoyed this. Like, it is always enjoyable because I have, 3 distinct options. And so every day I can just kind of see where I'm at that day. Like, if I have more to give and I'm ready to work on my story, I can, and I can feel good about it because it's going towards my camp goal. But if I'm just not in that space, I don't have to feel bad, that I am not in a good place to work on my story, and it wouldn't be productive if I did. And I can give myself something really relaxed. And I found that like just spending time outside and just chillaxing has been amazing for me creatively, like with my story, but also just like in my life, dealing with all the other hectic, busy things that are making this month kind of a lot. So it's been calming. It's been nice. Been healing.
Nice.
We love it. So
because I do think there is like a feedback loop, right? The more stressed you are, the harder it is to write, and if you don't meet your goal, then you're stressed about that and you feel kind of disappointed and
Absolutely.
And you feel like you've failed on a daily basis. And that's and back in April, if I hadn't hit my daily goal by like 10 p.m., I'm like, oh, I better sit down and start writing. Whereas on a normal day, I just go to bed. Like 10 p.m., that's my bedtime. And any words that I'm writing at that point are not going to make it into the the draft anyway. So I totally feel you. How about you, Katelin? If you felt any positive things come out of your journaling?
So many positives.
Good.
I mentioned in my announcement video where I told everyone that I was going to be journaling instead of working on a project. I talked about how at the moment I've been writing full time. And when I spend every waking moment working on the same project and my mind is just constantly thinking about writing the book and getting it done. And it's just all centered around that. I find that there's no mental energy left to write for me and to write for fun. And at the end of the day, like I love writing because I love writing, like I never really went in with the intention of, I'm going to write a million books. I just enjoy the art of writing. And so I think creating this goal for myself has allowed me to take a step back and focus on me and not the word count. As you guys both said, so much less stress, so much less pressure. I tend to put way too much pressure on myself when it comes to hitting certain quotas. And so taking that just out of the equation entirely has made this such a happy experience. And then, journaling is so great. It's so awesome. You learn so much about yourself, and there's a lot of self-discovery, and maybe you learn elements for your projects that you can apply later once the month is over. But it's nice to have a month where it's like, I'm not going to write in my project. This is all for me. And that's been the biggest positive that's come out of this.
That's wonderful. Because I do think, I actually realize I get to the end of the day and I'm like, oh, right, it's Nano. Have I done my thing? And I realize, yeah, I have. And I just realize how much time I do spend kind of thinking about my story, or even if I'm taking a walk with the dog and I'm looking around, sometimes I see something and I'm like, ooh, that would be cool, or that sparks a bit of inspiration, or I'm reading a book that could be a comp title, or that is in my genre, or kind of a similar trope or something that I can learn from. I think that counts. And I've gotten so many good ideas just from conversations I'm having with people. And then that sparks kind of the mental spiral that suddenly you're like in your own little world and you start figuring things out. And so I realized I do spend a lot of my time just thinking about it and planning. Yeah, I'm a super big fan of time-based goals. Now, I think it will be easier to translate into a writing routine, because for years now, I've been kind of worried, like, I cannot keep a writing routine, that I spend X number of hours, or I write X number of pages, or X number of words. I haven't been able to keep that routine up. But this, like, half hour a day, something writing related, I can keep that up. And actually, I'm doing a lot of work, like I'm getting stuff done because I don't have the pressure, I don't have this kind of sense of stress, and I'm finding a lot of inspiration elsewhere. Also, I haven't, like, around this time in April, I made a video about the mid-nano slump and how I was hitting it and I was feeling it and I was so low on energy and creativity, and I was like, it's the mid-nano slump, guys. I am not feeling the mid-nano slump. Are either of you feeling the mid-nano slump?
Not at all.
No,
not at all.
No slumps
that
here.
Is so good.
Because it is yeah.
It was so debilitating in April. I had a mini breakdown. It was too much, and I am not feeling it. I barely registered that it is the middle of the month.
And I wonder too if that's purely because, I just thought of this, I wonder if that's too purely because I feel like the three of us have looked at Nano not as Nano controlling our actions for the month, which I feel like for April and November, that's very much what it was. I was doing what Nano was telling me to do. And this month, we all took control. We all took power back over our own projects and our mental health and our goals. And I feel like because we're in the driver's seat, we're not even allowing the slump to happen. It's just not there. It just doesn't exist.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think we basically pick goals that fit really well for us.
Yeah.
And so it's more sustainable. It's not like you're trying to sprint a marathon. You're actually running the genuine marathon at the pace that you can sustain.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's true. And I think if anything, I'm just now realizing how much of an indication that is. If you set yourself a goal that is so taxing that you hit a slump 2 weeks in and you have to really overcome and kind of push through your mental health low, then maybe that goal is a little too high or a little too strict or unforgiving a little bit. And the fact that I'm not hitting it and none of us are hitting the mid-nano slump, I think says a lot.
It does. It absolutely
I
does.
think that's fair. That's fair. In defense of Camp NaNo, or any NaNoWriMo at all.
Go ahead.
I think so. I've been thinking about this. I think one of the best value adds that NaNoWriMo has, especially for new writers, I know this was true for me, is that it teaches you, even though it's like kind of an insurmountable thing to like accomplish, once you've finished it, you get the sense of accomplishment that you would get, even if you didn't finish a full draft, but you just hit the 50,000 or whatever. You get this rush of finishing a thing, of accomplishing a thing, that when you take your time writing, it takes a lot longer to get that. And especially for a new writer, you can get discouraged feeling like you're never gonna accomplish anything, you're never gonna finish anything, you're never gonna hit any of these milestones, because it takes a long time, especially when you're new, to figure out how to do all those things. And so I feel like NaNoWriMo really allows you to do it in a short amount of time, even though it's difficult. And like get that sense of accomplishment, or at least I think that's what it did for me. It's just like now in my writing life, I know I can finish something. I know I'm capable of that. And so I don't need to prove that to myself in a month.
So
You know what I
true.
mean?
Yeah.
So true.
That's a good point. You do feel pretty awesome when you hit
Yeah.
your goal.
Absolutely.
Great feeling.
It is.
Yeah.
It is good.
You do.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling.
That's so true. Wow. I had not thought of that. Because I had finished my first book in July of 2020. And then a few months later took on Nano, and I did not have a good time. You know, y'all saw my struggle every single day. And so that's such a good point that I really had not considered before, that maybe I was struggling a little bit with Nano because I was putting unnecessary pressure on myself, knowing that I could achieve it on my own, you know.
You've done
I
it.
already had. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a really, really interesting take, actually.
Yeah, because I think when I did Nano for the first time, it was the first time I had truly, I mean, I was fairly young, I was in high school, but it was the first time I had truly done something that I didn't think I could do starting out. I was like, I'm not sure I could actually pull this off, but I want to, and I want to be the kind of writer that can finish a thing. And being able to get all the way to the end of it, even though, could you even call it a novel? We don't know. But I had done it, and that sense of accomplishment gave me the confidence, and you get the full set of emotions, like how you feel at the beginning, how you feel in the middle, how you feel at the end, because you know that mid-nano slump is something you're probably gonna hit in your book even if you don't do NaNoWriMo. Like writing the middle, the slump in the middle, it's real. Even if you're doing it over like 6 months or a year. So I feel like that set of emotions, they just compress it into a month. So you feel them all the way through. Whereas if you write a book longer, you're just going to stretch those guys out, I think.
That's a good point too.
Yeah.
Like gets you all the way through the cycle.
Yeah.
Wow. Great points, everyone.
It's so interesting.
We're really unpacking NaNoWriMo.
We're so wise.
I love it.
Do you think this worked well for us because we are kind of in the prep phase? Like if we were later on in the book, if we were fast drafting, for example, or if we were in the first draft phase, would a word count goal be helpful to you, do you think? Kate?
I don't think so. No. I find that things like that just inherently stifle my creativity. They really do. Yeah, they like really, really do. Which is what I discovered recently with NaNoWriMo, how when I force myself to write things that I'm not mentally and creatively ready to write, it comes out bad. It just does. And not the kind of first draft bad that you're like, I know this is not going to be good. It's the bad that I'm not proud of it. And I don't ever want to walk away from my work feeling like I'm not proud of it. And so I think, you know, having really rigid goals like that just doesn't help me in any way. Like you said, though, the time-based thing, that's great because you can write as much or as little as you want in that time, you know? Yeah.
Do you think, I know you're a pantser, and do you think if you had like a detailed outline, do you think a word-based goal, and you were fast drafting or first drafting, do you think a word-based goal would help then? Or is it because you're a pantser that you're like, I'm just gonna write whatever is next or is comes to me that day?
Yeah. So I actually did try for NaNoWriMo. I had a very detailed outline. I had like scene by scene outline ready to go, and I quickly abandoned it because I was like, I know where it's taking me. Like, I don't want to write this. It's practically written in my head, you know? So I don't know. I think I may be just totally backwards from most.
No, not backwards. Just, it's so funny because when you say, I know what's going to happen, I'm like, I know what's going to happen. I'm so happy when I have an outline, and right now I don't, which is what I'm like.
Right. Yeah,
I don't
completely.
have one. Well, okay, it's definitive. Word-based goals, word count goals do not work for Kate.
Yeah, they really don't.
What about you, Danica? Do you think word-based goals would work for you ever?
You know, to be honest, I feel like I've had two types of NaNoWriMo experiences. I've had pretty much what I had last November and every time I've done NaNoWriMo before that, where I had a rough idea of my story and I just like went into it and wrote a ton. And I found that with the word count goal, it motivated me to write a lot. And in writing a lot, I was able to like sink into the world and the characters in a really interesting way. Like the experience of writing was genuinely different for me because I was writing so much so quickly. Looking back on those words, those chapters, were they amazing? Were they great? Were they like what I even maybe felt like they were as I was writing? Potentially not. But I mean, there definitely were some gems. There were some things in there that I think were great, and there was a lot that wasn't. But the experience of it was really cool, and I did like that. But for a long time, that was my only experience with NaNoWriMo, the only way I'd ever done it. Then when I did NaNoWriMo, like Camp NaNo in April, and I just was doing like my pre-writing outlining, and my goal was a lot more flexible, kind of like it is now. And so I wasn't really forcing myself into the world as much, or at least not in the same way. I found I was coming up organically with things that I really, really loved, you know, that I think maybe I love more than what I was coming up with in NaNoWriMo, but I wasn't as immersed in it the way that I was in Nano. So it's sort of hard for me to tell. It's sort of like they were two different types of things, and I could see them being used for different purposes. So I can very much see like the fast drafting like philosophy of literally just getting your story down on paper. I could see that working. And I think it might have worked for me last November if I had planned it out more. I think I'm more of a plotter than I had really understood at the time. So I feel like I haven't done it enough times to know. I'm not ruling it out, but I'm enjoying trying different types of goals. And I think certainly once I've finished a first full draft, but you know, probably once I've done a couple, I will have a better idea of what actually works best for me. But to me, they were just a little bit different. So not sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I also did, I mean, November was my first proper nano, and April was my first Camp NaNo. So these are all firsts for me. So I'm like you, I'm figuring out what works for me, what doesn't. And I won Camp NaNo in November, and I won NaNoWriMo in November, and I won Camp in April, and I was super proud that I'd done that. But I don't, like you say, Danica, those words, I mean, questionable.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I even want to reread some of the things that I wrote in November.
Yeah.
I think I reread some of it and I was like, good Lord, what is this? But it's done and it's down and it's a 0 draft and it's fine.
Yeah.
I think I have never tried the fast drafting method of like, you know, a book that will turn into 100,000 words. Fast draft, 0 draft is 30,000. I've never tried that, just to get the bare bones of every scene and chapter down and then to embellish later. I might try that this year in November. So I don't know if that will work for me. So I think I'm more where Danica is, where I'm a little unsure, rather than Katelin's like, nope, word count goals are out the window. I'm on the time-based side. But I think it's really interesting, and I think I can turn the time-based goal into a routine easier than a word count goal.
It's more sustainable.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to incorporate some of this into a kind of routine after camp is over? Either one of you? Kay?
I think my intention with starting the journaling was definitely to continue, hopefully, to make sure, kind of similar to Danica, that I'm refilling my personal well, you know, and keeping that up, because I feel like, you know, the more you write, the better you become. That's just a given. And so having the variety in which I'm writing, so writing in my projects, but also writing for myself, I think is only going to benefit me. So I'm going to try. I'm really going to try. It may not be every day, but, you know, maybe like a weekly thing. I'll give that a shot and see how that goes for me. Yeah.
Danica, how about you?
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I mean, I definitely have really enjoyed this. It's basically just forced me to prioritize myself in a time when I've been really busy. I will say, I think that normally when I'm not so busy, I am better about this, just regularly, routine or otherwise. And so this was particularly helpful for me this month because I am so busy, and it is something that like I would kind of toss to the wayside. But I do think it's something that I want to like keep as a part of my life, just making sure that I am taking time every day to do something for me, whether that is writing or something else. But I will say that I hope that in the future, I will not be so busy and I will be able to dedicate more actual time to actual writing. Like I'll be in a space, you know, where I have enough to give to be able to work on my story. Because one thing that I think has faltered, certainly, I mean, if you looked at like sort of objective productivity on my story, have I made nearly as much progress this month as I did last camp? It's not even close. There have been very few days when I have actually spent on my story. And so I miss that a little bit because I would love to be making progress on it. I love my story. I want to see it come to fruition. And the only way to do that is by, you know, putting time into it and moving it forward. So I'm hopeful that I will be able to switch more to focusing on my story, but just probably in months where I am able to do that, just given the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's something I was thinking about too. Like, you should always prioritize yourself and your mental health, especially when you're doing something that is so dependent on your creativity, you know, and this kind of writer's block idea can be so crippling. And sometimes you just stare at that blank page and nothing is coming out. And so it's good to then not immediately think, oh, well, today's a write-off or I've failed. But then to think, okay, well, what else can I do? What else can I do to refill my well? Or, you know, can I listen to some music that might inspire me? Or can I look up some pictures for a mood board? Or what can I explore? I think that would release me from kind of this like paralysis if I am not able to write. But I see what you mean about, I really wish that word count was going up though, or like I wish that outline was getting longer, or I wish I had, you know, an ending for my book.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, actually, Lovis, something you said just kind of reminded me. I realized that I think this month has taught me that my like writing and like rest of my life balance was probably like a little bit unhealthy before this month, because I realized even when I wasn't super busy, I would like, you know, I'd be doing like my actual real work, or I pretty much would be working on writing or one of my other projects. Like I never really had genuine downtime. I always felt like every spare moment needed to be going to something that was productive, whether it was like my real job or most often my writing or one of my other like kind of outside of work projects. So this month has taught me that I need more time where I'm not doing anything that is genuinely productive. And so maybe that is the thing that I need to take into, you know, like future months, is that just that like in order to make progress on my story, it doesn't mean I need to spend every minute on my story. It actually means I need to spend some of that time doing things that are not my story, because that's really good for me in order to be productive in that extra time. It's just right now I don't even really have that extra time. I mostly just have the time to like refill. So
yeah, that's a really good point. So I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit, and I think the last question I want to ask is, what is one kind of spark of inspiration that you've had? Assuming you've had one, it might not be a moment that you can pinpoint, but like, to give you a minute to think about it. This month I've been brainstorming a lot. I've been trying to outline, and the other day I just randomly wrote out like the first act and a half of my story, and I was like, oh, I do have some things like worked out. That's kind of cool. And then realized all the things I don't have worked out, like a plot or the climax of my story or the second POV or anything. But I do have some things, and I've had so many like sparks of inspiration just from other things that I've been watching. I'm like, ooh, that's cool. And so, you know, my story has taken kind of a slight turn, or it's broadened because of things that I've seen. And I'm at the moment I'm kind of trying to figure out, because I have these two points of view characters. I'm trying to figure out, when do I want them to meet? Do I want them to meet right at the beginning? So I'm writing one storyline but two POVs, or do I want parallel storylines and then they mingle and then they, you know, interact with each other and influence each other? So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out right now. And that's kind of a thing that I was like, oh yeah, I should answer that question. But yeah, what's kind of a spark of inspiration that you've had this month?
Do you have an answer, Kate?
Do you?
I can go with mine. I think mine is...
yeah, go ahead.
Well, you tell me what you think mine is. I mean, so obviously I haven't spent like as much time, obviously, on my story. As I said, I've spent more on those other two options this past month, the first half so far. But what I have noticed is that when I go back to my story and I'm working on it, that like spark of like excitement and like, I really love this and this can be really cool, and like, you know, the certain characters that you really kind of love and the moments that you're like really excited to put down on paper, like I feel like I've sort of rediscovered some of that, like, you know, shininess and excitement for my story that I think when I was really just, you know, trying to move forward, because I do love it and I want it to grow, I think I kind of was pushing myself enough that I was losing sight of that sometimes. So I think that taking the space, maybe like my spark of inspiration has really just been, you know, my spark of the story that I loved, like rediscovering that part of it and feeling that excitement again, I think has been really, really wonderful.
That's really good. I'm glad you've rediscovered that, because that's important to keep alive if you're going to pursue this long and arduous process.
Yes. It's sort of like I gave that kindling some oxygen, you know, so it can kind of grow into a healthy flame. Exactly.
Love. I think for me, I have been struggling lately with finding kind of the voice that I would like to continue on. And I know voices can evolve and change with writing, but I wrote this novel and I am very proud of it and I love it, but I don't think that it's truly written in the kind of voice and in the way that I would hope to moving forward. And so I really looked at this process and this month as a way to kind of explore different ways to kind of get that voice that I'm hoping to present out. And day one on my live stream with you, Lovis, actually, I was like so pleased with what I wrote. And it was so like flowery, very prose heavy, like just so like, you know, a lot. But I was like, you know what? The essence of this is what I'm going for. And so it was nice to kind of know that day one, like I'm capable of achieving what I see for myself. I know I can write it. I know it's possible. And so that kind of made moving forward so much easier to kind of have that big win on day one. And that has really been kind of guiding me as I that has been guiding me as I answered the prompts every day and just kind of keeping in mind that essence from day one and that spark that I had.
That's really cool. I didn't realize that you were searching for your voice.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, and I don't know if I'm sure most authors probably go through this at one point where they kind of look back on what they've written and they can say, I'm very proud of this and I'm so glad that I've achieved this, but it's maybe not where I would like to continue moving forward. And I think for me, there was a sense of immaturity to some of my past writing, and I'm really trying to kind of write at this higher level. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm still kind of, as you can see, like working it out as I go day by day, but it's nice to know that I have something to strive for with that. So yeah.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like these time-based goals and chilled out goals and putting ourselves first goals have been working out really well for us so far. So that's a really good mid-camp check-in, I think. I'm really happy with the goal that I chose because it's so easily achievable as well. So I never feel like, oh, I didn't manage that today. Like, I can find a half hour every day somehow, even if it's reading, even if it's dictating, even if it's just thinking, even if it's just sitting there and thinking about it. I can manage half an hour a day. And I think that's how I need to start. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this mid-camp check-in. And I hope that that the rest of camp goes just as well for you. I will have both Katelin and Danica's channels linked below, so definitely subscribe. And while you're here watching this, you might as well subscribe to my channel as well. And let us know down in the comments below what your Camp Nano goal was, if you went for a word-based goal or a time-based goal or page-based goal or whatever, and how you think that's working for you, and maybe after some of the things we've said, if you're gonna think about a different kind of goal, because I'd be really interested to know if how people are feeling and thinking. So that is it for us today, and we will check in again towards the end, I think.
Amazing.
And good luck with camp, everybody.
Thank you. Sorry about my family. They've been so loud. I'm so sorry.
You gotta keep that in, Lovis.
We work, yeah, I think I'll keep that in.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you so much. Ridiculous.
And I'll see you next week, Ecofictologists.